folks, it's your buddy Noodler coming at you from our Blues Guitarist Secret HQ here. Um, as usual, I'll be playing for you today through my trusty parts caster, and my signal chain will consist of this Dan Electro Honeytone 9-volt battery powered belt clip amplifier. Anyway, tone isn't really, our issue today. So, what I want to teach you today is a little bit of theory. Don't get freaked out. And how to learn it by from your guitar, and useful stuff that you can put to work right away. Um, Now, on the topic of theory, usually you go over to our guitar, you see these guys, well, how do I learn theory? And everybody says, well, you got to learn the major scale. And they're right. But, on paper, like, you should really learn, you can learn all the theory you need to know in an afternoon on paper, right? If you know your alphabet from A to G, you're already halfway there. It's not the big secret mystery that people seem to think it is. But the problem is, I remember I wanted to pick up on some theory, and I was told, well, the first thing you got to learn is the major scale. But on guitar, okay, there's the major scale, do, re, mi. And I dutifully learned the major scale, and then I spent like 2 weeks trying to find some licks in there. You know what I'm saying? And I found it inapplicable, and I found Christmas carols and Happy Birthday and all this shit, like nothing that really I found immediately applicable to playing guitar. And the thing is, most of us guitar players, the first scale we learn is actually the minor pentatonic scale, right? And that's where we find all our licks and stuff noodling around. And the major scale just seems alien when that's where you're coming from. Um, so I'm going to show you instead what I think, I think a guitar player should bust into this world of theory and 3-note per string stuff, etc., is by learning the minor scale, because it fits so well over the minor pentatonic shape. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the minor scale, otherwise known as the Aeolian mode, as applied to, and we're going to play in the key of A, so, your pentatonic minor shape, we all know it. It's, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8, okay? And we're just going to add a couple of notes to that and turn this into the minor scale, aka the Aeolian mode. So, here we go. We go 5, 7, 8 on the low E, 5, 7, 8 on the A string, 5, 7 on the D string, 4, 5, 7 on the G string, 5, 6, 8 on the B string, and then 5, 7, 8 on the high E. One more time for your edification. 5, 7, 8 on the low E, 5, 7, 8 on the A string, 5, 7 on the D string, 4, 5, 7 on the G string, 5, 6, 8 on the B string, and 5, 7, 8 on the high E string. Right? So get that scale under your fingers. I mean, it's just a couple extra notes, right? Couple little half steps there, and just try riffing out over an A minor vamp. Right? Right? Whatever. Point being, it's easy to start finding licks right away playing the Aeolian mode, because it fits right on top of your pentatonic minor scale, and it just lends itself to finding licks. And if you know the pentatonic minor scale all over the neck, and you should, if you're looking at this lesson, then you know that you can add these notes wherever they show up all over it. So if this is the 5 and you got this groovy flat 6 that we've added, that means when you play the 5 up here on the G string, it's going to be right there too. So you end up with all... Right? Woo, you know, Carlos Santana, whatever. Point being, you can find these licks everywhere, and it's just immediately more gratifying than trying to find something to do with the major scale. It's just, what the fuck do I do with this? So, if you looked at my first couple of lessons, I talked about mixing the major and minor pentatonic scales. And you know, the first part of that lesson was how to find the major pentatonic scale if you are already used to playing the minor. And I explained 2 ways to find it. If you knew the major scale, it would be the 6th degree of the major scale is the root note of the minor pentatonic shape that would then behave as major pentatonic. Okay, I know that's a little complicated, so let me just recap it. You're playing the minor pentatonic shape at the 5th fret in the key of A. You want to play an A major pentatonic. You can just drop that root note 3 frets towards the nut. So 5 minus 3 is 2, right? So I start playing the same minor pentatonic shape starting at the 2nd fret. I am, in fact, playing a major pentatonic. So you play an A chord. It has that country major sound happening, right? Now, the beautiful thing is, if you took that lesson and you understand that, you can turn that major pentatonic shape immediately into A major. And how do you do that? You add the notes we just did to the minor shape. Right? You take that same pattern we just learned and play it here, and you are now, in fact, playing the A major scale. Right? Simple. Simon shit. And the beautiful thing is, here's a little trick, right? Now that once you've got that Aeolian minor scale shape, you know, under your fingers, if you're playing A with the root note on the low E, so you're this bar chord here, this root note right on the 5th fret happens to be the top of that shape, like so. Right? So then if you were playing, and this tells you immediately, so now that's where the major scale is, right? So let's say you play the shape we learned. What does this tell you? Here's my little pop quiz. What does this tell you? That this root note at the top of this A minor scale that we learned in the first place, this root note's a C, right? So that means that this A minor shape that I taught you in the first place is in fact the C major scale, right? So, you know, as I've pointed out a couple of times, scales have multiple identities, and it is only when you put a chord underneath a scale that it becomes something, right? So this minor scale that I taught you, its other identity happens to be C major, right? So, bam, all of a sudden, you've learned the shit you needed to know. You can now play the complete major scale and the minor scale with the same shape, same set of notes. And you're going to find licks with that as opposed to learning the major scale like this. Fuck me. You know. Right? It's the same frickin' notes, just put elsewhere, and the minor scale is just a mode of the major scale. Again, the major scale is the meta scale All other scales are derived from it. When you're talking in terms of theory, everything is referred to as related to the major scale. But you've learned it now by learning the minor scale, which under your fingers, that minor scale shape, just you can immediately find more shit. If you're like me or most guitar players, and the first things you learn were the minor pentatonic scale and playing like blues rock, rock and roll based music, you're used to that shape. You can find licks that way. But when somebody shows you, you're like, what do I do with that? Well, now, and so, just, as a further sort of expansion on this, when you're grooving in A, and you're playing in the A major pentatonic, and playing in that A major pentatonic shape, getting that sort of country vibe, that nice major sound, you sometimes it sounds really groovy to add those notes that are from the major scale that are right there. Right? You can add those little half steps in that shape, the way we were doing it, and suddenly it makes sense, and you're playing licks in the major scale, but they sound good. They sound like some, they suddenly start to make sense. So, that's my tip for you. So just to recap, because I know I've been gibbering like a fucking retard here. So learn this shape, the minor shape. Right? You learn that shape, and you can take that and you can play it over the major pentatonic that I already taught you, and now you are in fact playing the major scale. And the other tip was off of this root note, right, on your high E, that root note is like this, right? So if you're playing in that minor scale that we learned, that root note is it makes that you're playing it as a minor scale, but this root note tells you which major scale it is. That note right at the top of that shape. So A minor, that's a C. That means A minor is in fact C major. Right? So anywhere you play this, play that shape I taught you, when you get to the top of the that shape on the high E string, that tells you what major scale you'd be playing if you were playing over that particular chord. So, bam, you've just learned a whole bunch of shit. Another thing I'd add, just as well, is that when you're playing these scales, often you're playing 3 notes per string, and if you want to shred or you want to play fast or whatever, that's really the secret in a nutshell, is these guys are playing 3 note per string shapes. So you're going to get more mileage out of each string. You're going to sound faster. Whatever. I mean, I'm no, Ingwe. But point being, 3 notes per string equals more speed, or more perceived speed, or however you want to look at it. And really, that's I think all I got for you today. Learn that